So today we want to talk about Genesis 33. So this is the final chapter of the Come Follow Me for the week. But some interesting stuff is happening, and just this is such an interesting time of history with things that are going on at this time. And you got to realize that there's tons of culture all around what is happening here. All we're getting is the storyline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, and that's kind of their family line down. That's all we're getting. Okay, there's a whole world of stuff happening around them that's we're just not even paying attention to in the Old Testament. So the Hittites, there's Sumerians, Akkadians, the origins of Babylon and Persia. The Egyptians have a very thriving country going on right now. Syria, a lot of those countries are forming up there. Anatolia, which is up in Turkey, lots of development, lots of activity and things happening there. There's just a lot that is going on. Okay, Babylon has been around for a while. There's, like I says, Egypt has been around for a very long time. Because we're getting into an area where I'm trying to think what would be a good time frame range. Possibly 1300s, I think. Either I might have to look that up and see, but there's, we're still centuries before the Book of Mormon even starts. But we're getting into these times again. We're only getting a little bit of information of what's going on in world history at this time. So we're talking like Bronze Age area, that whole area, that whole time frame. So realize that we're just getting this one family story out of all these things that are going on, and people are kind of coming and going from the story, like Laban, Isaac's brother-in-law, basically, and cousin. He or not Laban, sorry, Jacob. He is a part of the story, but we only get it as it connects with this main story about Jacob. So there's so much more that is happening, so much more that's going on. Just realize that. And if you want to get into more understanding, go do studies into ancient Mesopotamia. Look up the Akkadians, look up the Hittites, look up Sumeria, look up the history of Egypt, look up some of these other groups, and you'll start to learn more about what else has been happening at this time as well. So lots more stuff being done that we're not even getting in the Old Testament here. So we're just getting this really narrow view, because this is establishing, of course, Moses, when he's putting this together, he compiled the book of Genesis. He's compiling everything that has happened, basically how the blessings of the fathers from Adam and Enoch come down, and then there's Noah, the great flood, and then the Tower of Babel and the scattering of the people with the confounding of languages. And that's where culture and diversity start to really take off. And then there's kind of a jump. Basically, we don't get a lot of history, kind of a fast forwarding into Abraham, and then we slow down to learn more about Abraham and his life, and Isaac, and now Jacob, as that's preparing for, of course, as we get to the end of the book of Genesis, Jacob's sons and their entrance into Egypt and dealing with the Egyptians, which sets the scene for the book of Exodus, which is the story that Moses is a lot more familiar with, which is his story of dealing with the children of Israel in Egypt and then getting them out of Egypt. So that's what's happening. Okay, this is not world history. This is just a small sliver of what's there. All right, and then after Egypt, we get into understanding, the law of Moses and stuff, and then of course it follows the line of the kingship of Judah. And that's an important thing, because that helps us to understand the genealogy of the kingship of Judah and how those exchanges and things happen while we're getting prophecies and revelations and stories and other things in there, like Isaiah and Jeremiah and them, because that's going to help set up and prove that Jesus Christ in the New Testament is the King of Israel. He follows that line that's so important that we understand. So it's all there for a purpose. It's not comprehensive history. That's not the Old Testament. It's about Jewish history. Okay, most of our Old Testament is based on Jewish scriptures. Okay, so just understand that. All right, we're not getting the full picture of everything that's going on. Just a narrow perspective of the history of Judah, basically, and the kingship of the tribes of Israel and things. So just understand that. Okay, just an important perspective to take. All right, well, let's get into this because we have Jacob and Esau back together, and they know there is Jacob. Esau knows Jacob's coming back to the land, and he's bringing his family. So Esau comes out to meet him, and there's still some differences between these two brothers, some bad blood things they have to sort out. So let's get into chapter 33 to learn more about how this gets taken care of. So verse 1, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. So Esau's coming with 400 men. Jacob, it might be a little concerned that Esau's coming with an army to fight and destroy him. And so here's what he does. Basically, he divides the children out, says, okay, go where you're with your mom, sets out his 4 wives and their children. Verse 2, and he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. Basically, so he put the 2 handmaids up front, basically. So those would be the first part of the Jacob's family that Esau would meet, and their sons and their families and things there. Then Leah was after them, and then Rachel was after them, basically closer to where Jacob was. Now, a lot of people look at this and say, oh, this isn't a good thing. You know, he's basically, if Esau's coming with an army, he's going to kill them, the handmaids and their children first. That's, he's kind of like putting the defense up there. You guys get to be the first to get killed, and then save, the ones I like more. But this is more modern thinking that we're using here. So here's something that actually comes out of Clarke's Bible commentary. He said, some have criticized Jacob's arrangement of the camp because it appears that he is putting the handmaids and their children in the most dangerous position. It would be a natural thing, however, in the Middle East for a clan leader to show off his family and possessions in such a way that the best and most highly favored is saved until last. So he's not necessarily trying to appear like a chicken, like my least favorite people in my family are going to go out front and the most favorite are up close. He's necessarily saying, I am displaying my family. Come see my family. Come see my possessions, my wealth, basically, and my honor. So this is a normal thing. He's not, again, we have to realize that how we think isn't how they thought back then. There's different cultures, different traditions, and we need to respect and understand their point of view from their perspective. Okay, we can't judge them based upon our perspective. That's not going to be completely accurate or fair. We have to look at what happened in their life, what was going on in there, what was the culture, what was the tradition. That's the important thing we have to understand. Okay, understand it from their perspective to help us gain a better perspective of what was going on. Then we have a better opportunity to make an evaluation from our perspective. So that's what's happening here, basically. Now, verse 3, and he passed over them, Jacob, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. So Jacob went ahead of them, basically. So he wasn't hiding behind all of his wives and children. He went ahead of them. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times. There's a ritual to that. And he kept going and bowing until he came up to his brother. Verse 4, and Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So while Jacob may have been worried that Esau was coming with his anger to get him, they had been apart for so long that maybe that time apart has helped heal some of those wounds, and they came together as brothers to meet each other, family. Verse 5, and he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, who are those with thee? So this is Esau, of course. And he said, the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. So Esau's like, who are these people? And Jacob saying, these are my wives, and my children. And he's referring to himself as thy servant. So he's coming to Esau in a very humble situation here. He's coming as if he is a servant of his brother, basically. He's not trying to make himself more important than his brother, but in a way less important than his brother, in a way, as a servant. Verse 6, then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. So they're showing respect to Esau, who's a main figure in this area. And let's see, verse 7, and Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves, and after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. So they're there. Bible dictionary, of course, Rachel is in the Bible dictionary, if you were wondering about that. And verse 8, and he said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. So he says, why did you send all these people? Because remember, the last chapter, he sent some of his servants ahead with a bunch of flocks and precious metals and things. And so Esau is saying, why did you send this group to meet me? What was going on with this? Remember, they had that kind of staged, he's going to meet him here, and then more here, and then more here. And Jacob's like, look, I want to find grace in you. I want to make sure there's peace between us. There's no hard feelings. Everything's cool. And verse 9 is Esau's response. He says, I have enough, my brother, referring to that relationship. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. So Esau's like, I've got plenty. You keep your possessions. We're good. We're good. So Jacob says in verse 10, nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. So Jacob's going, look, God has been very gracious with me, with my blessings of family, with wealth, with opportunities and things. I do want, if you want to, I'm trying to think what would be the best way to phrase that, basically. He's basically saying, look, no, I insist. Please, if you are accepting of me, then accept this gift. And so Esau says, okay, fine. I will accept your gift. So they're being very gracious to each other, basically, which is a good sign between them. So verse 12, and he said, let us take our journey and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds are with young, are with me, and if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. So he's saying, so they're going, Esau's like, let's go back. I'll go with you. Let's go back to my place. And Jacob's like, we can't march fast. We got little kids and we have animals who are pregnant. So if we go too fast, it's going to cause problems. So verse 14, let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure until I come to my Lord unto Seir. Now, Seir is a location which is in the Bible dictionary, if you didn't know. Hopefully you see a trend here. The Bible dictionary has a lot of information, lots and lots of information. So Jacob's basically saying, look, I'm going to travel behind you. You take the advance party, you guys go. I'm going to move at the pace that works best for the kids and for the cattle. And so I will be there eventually, and we'll meet over here, basically. So verse 15, and Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, what needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau's like, well, let me leave some of my men here with you to do this. And Jacob's like, why? I'm going to seek, the Lord will take care of us, kind of a thing. So anyways, verse 16, so Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. So that's why it's called that place. He found a spot, he settled basically down. Built a house, which takes time, to build it up. and instead, so he's not necessarily going all the way to Seir. He's decided he's going to stop and rest for a while and actually build a place to live. Verse 18, and Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram and pitched his tent before the city. So he built a house, and then he's traveling on into the land of Canaan. Verse 19, he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money, and he erected there an altar and called it El Ehloi Israel, which is in the Bible dictionary. All those words, all those places and names are in the Bible dictionary. So look them up to even gain some more perspective of things. Again, get in the habit of looking in the Bible dictionary. Read the Bible dictionary. There's so much information in there. And if you are taking that advice to go through the Bible dictionary, let us know in the comments. Let me know what that's like and what you're learning. There's so much in there. It's a just a very important book to read. Tons of information to read. So now we get this story. It sounds like Jacob and Esau are pretty reconciled. Jacob's now, he's settled in a place he called Succoth, and now he's traveling and he's bought some land to put a tent, kind of dwell for a little while in a city called Shechem, which is named after the ruler of the city, Shechem. And so he's over in that area and he builds an altar, basically. And he brings that up. So some fascinating things. In fact, that word El Ehloi Israel means basically God is, or El is the name of God, is the God of Israel, basically. So which his name is Israel, so that is his God, basically. So so some cool stuff. Not a ton, but it's interesting to see how the cultures and traditions happen and how things work out. So stay tuned for the next chapter, 34. We have a very interesting story to talk about next time. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then.